Yo, 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 Big D with another week 4 recap on the Big D podcast. Before I bring it out, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. Thank goodness, got a power internet, but our thoughts and prayers are with everybody affected by Hurricane Ian. So this is for you, Southwest Florida. Also, check out the Big D podcast for your audio listeners on Spotify and Apple. So even though his Dolphins already lost on Thursday, Alex is back to talk week 4 with me. So Alex, there were a couple interesting games yesterday, and how about that quarterback duel just up the road in Tampa between Mahomes and Brady? That was okay, right?
Yeah, we obviously, first of all, I hope I know I'm sure we have a big Fort Myers audience because that's your home base. So just a big shout out to the Fort Myers community sticking together. I've seen a lot of different restaurants and places that have, restaurants still standing, offering free food out to just the community. So big shout out to the Fort Myers community for sticking together. I know there's some a lot of damage, a lot of hard times ahead, but it's a strong community. I was proud to be a part of it for a good amount of time. So I know everyone in Fort Myers, if you are able to listen to this, just know that that we are thinking about you and we are supporting you throughout this hard time. But speaking of obviously that game in Tampa, we weren't sure if that game was going to be held in Tampa, but we got the NFL gave the green light about midway through that week. It was definitely a shootout. I mean, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs go, you can't start a game much better than forcing a fumble on the opening kickoff. So you think you're getting the ball to start the second half, and what do you know? You get the ball to start the first half too. But I mean, it was the young versus the old, the master versus the upcoming face of the NFL. So it was a fun one for sure.
Yeah, if you think back to 2 years ago, they met in the regular season when Tyreek Hill went for like 9 million yards in the first quarter. And then remember the Super Bowl where the Bucs took advantage of a hobbled Chief offensive line and a hobbled Patrick Mahomes and won that game 31-9. So thinking back to last night, do you think it was more payback or more erasing the memory of that awful night from the Super Bowl if you were Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs?
For me, I really just think my biggest takeaway from this game is that the Chiefs are just a better football team, in my opinion. I mean, I'm looking at the Bucs. Obviously, they're sitting at a 2-2 record. That's not where they want to be after 4 games. But I mean, Tom Brady is at the end of his career. I think we've all known it, obviously, with the retirement announcement in this most recent offseason, even though he took it back. Yes, and if you look at the box score, if you just look at this game from the box score, you see Tom Brady 39 of 52, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And they got Patrick Mahomes 23 of 37, 249, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, statistically, it looked like Brady had the better game, but honestly, that's why you can't always trust the stats, because just from what I saw in that game, it's Magic Mahomes. I mean, the play he threw to Edwards-Helaire, I mean, it's mad. It's even, you can't even do that in Madden. It's some of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen. And Patrick Mahomes is, I mean, he's one of the most complete quarterbacks that we've ever seen in this National Football League. Tom Brady, as great as his career was, I mean, the big thing that I'm looking at this is especially, I mean, obviously the first play for the Bucs was a fumble on the kickoff. You can't take that into consideration. But their second drive, 7 plays, 45 yards, they get a field goal out of it. Then a 3-and-out punt. They had a nice touchdown drive, 6 plays, 75 yards. Next drive, a fumble. Another nice touchdown drive, then a punt. It's not the Tom Brady cool, calm, and collected offense that we've been used to seeing in his career. I see the age. Even on his first touchdown pass to Mike Evans was wide open in the end zone, and that that ended up being a harder catch for Mike Evans and a closer call than it should have been. I mean, if Brady puts that ball in the numbers, Evans doesn't even get touched. He falls into the end zone, but it was high, it was away. Credit to Mike Evans for making a great catch. But I think unfortunately for a lot of NFL fans, we're kind of seeing the decline of Tom Brady. It's not as rampant as we saw in some recent quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Brees, his last season looked horrible. I don't think Brady looks that bad. He still has that clutch competitiveness, but it's just the Kansas City Chiefs are younger. Patrick Mahomes is in the prime of his career, and it's just, whether it's bad feelings from the Super Bowl or whatever. I just the Kansas City offense in particular, especially with Andy Reid, it's a fun offense to watch, and it's a hard team to beat.
You must have watched it. You and I must have watched a different game, because I thought Tom Brady looked great last night. I mean, Chiefs threw a lot of pressure, a lot of different blitz, but Brady looked great behind a mismatch, behind a crappy offensive line. Mike Evans was great. It looked like he was making plays. I mean, Tampa's offense looked okay, but the big storyline was Mahomes, and not just Mahomes, but Travis Kelce. And despite Kansas City Chiefs trading a Tyreek Hill, they're a team I'm not going to talk about right now. Kansas City's offense looked like it always does. I mean, Kelce making plays, and VS, Juju making plays, Sky Moore. But there is no better offensive mind than Andy Reid. And we saw that play where Mahomes spun around, did a little dope-si-do, and found Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, he is like, if there were a football horse competition, I think Mahomes would win it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and just to kind of back up what I was saying there, I'm not saying that Tom Brady is a bad quarterback. I'm not saying that he's completely fallen off. It's just it's not the Tom Brady that we've seen over his entire career. I see the age coming in a little bit. I see a little bit less pocket presence. You've got Tom Brady, who, as successful as a quarterback as he has been in his career, he's on the decline. This is going to be his last season, and Patrick Mahomes is just in the prime of his career. It's two guys who are in different parts of their career, and unfortunately for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday, the team with the younger quarterback and the face of the NFL right now came out on top.
But to me, the big difference for Kansas City last night was not just Mahomes, but Kansas City's running game, because we all remember, are used to seeing Andy Reid be a pass-first coach, but yet the Chiefs ran the ball for 189 yards last night. The Bucs, well, they barely ran the ball. They ran the ball 6 times for 3 yards. And get this, Noah Gregg, who ran one of Kansas City's touchdowns, got more rushing yards than Lenny Fournette.
Yeah, it was definitely, and that's a great point. I mean, and you think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire too. I mean, the fantasy darling of his week one. I mean, I remember back his rookie year when, he took the league by storm that week one of the season, put up at least, I think, 40 points in that first game. And obviously people have faded off of him a little bit. He dropped in fantasy drafts this season. People didn't seem to be able to trust him, but it sure looks like Andy Reid's trusting him, because he is giving Clyde Edwards-Helaire opportunities. He's giving him the ball in those goal line situations. Patrick Mahomes seems to trust him, and I think fantasy managers are starting to trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lot as well. But it's definitely a good point about the run.
And that Isaiah Pacheco guy is something too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you were trying to target him in the last couple rounds of some best ball leagues and some deeper fantasy league teams as well.
Ooh. Obviously, Kansas City has to retire the Tyreek Hill's old number.
Yeah, right about that. It's Cheetah was great for him, but I think it takes a special kind of career to retire a number for a team like that. But any last bits of comment on the Kansas City Tampa game?
I'm guessing, in a way, people think of top young quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. And Mahomes guy's okay.
Yeah, he's not bad.
He's only playing the last 4 AFC Championship games.
Right. For Tampa, they've got a matchup next week with the Atlanta Falcons who are coming in off a win this week. The Kansas City Chiefs have a division matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll see how those two teams, how Tampa Bay bounces back next week, and if Kansas City can keep the momentum going against division rival. But
by the way, Falcons, please throw the ball to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. I'm not going on another rant.
I know you're not, but that might be something I might bring up in a little bit shortly. But let's move on. Another game I want to talk about this week. Obviously, there was a lot to pick from, but if anyone listening to this has a bet slip for the first NFL rookie quarterback to throw a touchdown pass this season, being Bailey Zappi of the New England Patriots, please show me those bet slips and enjoy your payday. Because how about the performance from the New England Patriots third string quarterback against the Aaron Rodgers of all people in the Green Bay Packers? Obviously, the Packers ended up pulling out that game in overtime. But if you would have told me that the New England Patriots third string quarterback Bailey Zappi would have taken Aaron Rodgers to overtime, I would have said that you were out of your mind. How about that performance from the young New England quarterback, not the one that we have been talking about so much, and his counterpart Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the field?
Well, it's funny you mentioned this game because before the game, we made a bet. It was a $25 bet. You took Green Bay minus 9.5. I took New England plus 9.5.
Yep.
And I know you were thinking when the game went to overtime, I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
You were thinking, even if Green Bay kicked the field goal, scored it on a touchdown, you were done anyway. You were done.
I even texted you when that game went into overtime. I knew it. I said, watch, Green Bay's going to kick a field goal on the opening drive and then have a pick six and not kick the extra point. And I'm just going to lose it by half a point. Obviously, it didn't quite hit the spread as close as I thought. You called New England outright. I mean, the bet was definitely for the spread. So I manned up and I paid you for that. But I was impressed by Bailey Zappi. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there was a couple situations. Obviously, the strip sack, the pocket presence was nowhere to be seen on that play. But he made some plays. He hit Devontae Parker for a nice touchdown. I mean, he kept the New England Patriots, a team who has been struggling this season. I mean, they still didn't come out with the victory. They're at a 1-3 record, bottom of the AFC East. But you've got to at least, there's got to be some talking from some of those talking heads in New England radio this week about maybe the New England Patriots drafted the right guy. It just wasn't exactly the guy they thought. I don't know. I mean, do you think? Obviously, I mean, it's Mac Jones's team. Do you think Bailey Zappi's performance and possibly depending on when Mac Jones comes back, is there any sort of conversation here? Or is it Mac Jones's team?
It's Mac. You don't just draft Mac with the 15th overall pick and have him ride the pine to this guy.
Yeah.
By the way, the big question to me might not be based on New England's quarterback situation, but Green Bay, because Aaron Rodgers has not looked good this year. Threw a bad pick six yesterday. Green Bay made a nice comeback at the end. But I don't know about you, Alex. The Packers don't look like a Super Bowl contender. Green Bay doesn't even look like the best team in the NFC North. I told you Minnesota was going to win the division. Yeah. The Packers right now miss Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams misses Aaron Rodgers because he's playing a crappy team in Las Vegas. Are the Green Bay Packers? We're used to seeing the Green Bay Packers as a bona fide Super Bowl team. Are the Packers even a contender in the NFC this year? I don't think so.
I mean, contender for the NFC or contender for the playoffs? Because if I'm a Packers fan, if I'm a Packers fan right now, I'm looking at my schedule coming up saying I mean, yes, we pulled out this game against New England, but New England is not a very good football team. I think it's been pretty safe to say throughout the first 4 weeks of the season. And I'm sorry, Dave, I know you're going to be listening to this and you're not going to be too happy with that comment, but it's the truth of the matter. They didn't address their needs in the offseason. They have, Mac Jones had a great second half of the stretch last season, but he started off slow this year. It's just, I'll tell you what, I'm not worried about either of these teams. 4 weeks ago, before the kickoff of the NFL season, I was looking at that Miami Dolphins Green Bay Packers Christmas Day game, and I was nervous about it. Today, I think the Miami Dolphins can take the Green Bay Packers, and I really wouldn't even be too concerned about it. Yes, Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. He can make a play happen in an instant. But that team as a whole, I mean, we've been talking about this throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. I do not know what Matt LaFleur and the offensive coaching staff is doing by not getting the ball in Aaron Jones's hands as much as possible. He had 16 carries yesterday, 110 yards. He had a good day rushing the ball, but he still only had 3 receptions. I mean, these vacated targets that Devontae Adams has left for that Green Bay offense. I mean, yes, Allen Lazard, 6 catches, 116 yards. He had a good game, but also the game went in overtime. So those numbers are going to be at least a little bit inflated. There was a couple of drives in that overtime. I just do not understand. I mean, we saw Aaron Jones lining up at wideout plenty of times last season. Why not have A.J. Dillon in the backfield, have Aaron Jones running routes, even have both of them in the backfield, motion Aaron Jones out. Aaron Jones is the most dynamic player on that Green Bay Packers offense, and why their offense is not focused around him is just blowing my mind.
Somebody explain that math for us, because Green Bay's 3-1, but I've got a lot more questions about Green Bay than a few other teams. Even though the Ravens blew another fourth quarter lead yesterday, I've got fewer questions on the Ravens than I do the Packers.
And I'm right there with you on that sentiment. I mean, at least with the Ravens, you see what their plan is. You see what their offensive game plan, what their style of football is,
until it's fourth down.
Until it's fourth down or the fourth quarter. But I mean, we still see what the Baltimore offense is. I'm looking at this Green Bay Packers offense, and it seems like every week it's just a different combination of ideas that they're trying to throw together. And yes, yes, they're 3-1, but like you said, I mean, it's just it's not a team that scares me. If I'm in the NFC, it's not a team that scares me as far as the playoffs go. And if I'm the Miami Dolphins looking at that Christmas Day game, I mean, obviously a lot of it relies on what happens with the Tua situation, but I'm a lot less worried about that Green Bay Christmas Day game than I was 4 weeks ago.
Okay, Alex, we're about a quarter of the way through the season. Which team has been the biggest surprise in 2022?
Good or bad? We start good. I mean, I would have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I think we knew that the Eagles were going to be a good football team, but I don't think we really were ready for how good the Philadelphia Eagles were actually going to be. I mean, they did, this game this week, obviously your Jacksonville Jaguars, you put up a fight, and it was an 8-point finish. I think the Jaguars blew a couple opportunities there to make it an even closer game. But I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts, with AJ Brown, with Miles Sanders even running the ball well, it's a team that is really. I expected them to be good, but I wasn't sure how good they were going to be, and they are much better than I anticipated at the very least. I mean, won a shootout with the Lions week 1, kept Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings offense to absolutely nothing in week 2. Pretty much controlled from start to finish that game against the Commanders. And you always got to have those squeaky ones, but being able to pull out the squeaky ones is what makes the good football teams, what separates the good football teams from the bad football teams. And Jacksonville's no slouch this season either, as we've seen. So I definitely got to give a big shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think you've got the right team, but I think you've got the right division, but you've got the wrong team. How about the New York Football Giants?
You're right about that.
And maybe more importantly, how about Saquon Barkley? Because if you drafted Saquon Barkley this year, you're looking pretty good, because all the other first-round running backs have been crap. Let's see. Jonathan Taylor, hurt. Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, back. Dalvin Cook, back.
Yeah.
Devontae Williams, torn ACL out for the year.
Even Joe Mixon, he's been okay, but he hasn't been, as productive as we might have expected from him.
And I mean, and by the way, the Giants
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler got 3 touchdowns yesterday, but he played the Texans.
But McCaffrey had a good day yesterday too. I mean, but it's still not the stat lines that we're expecting out of these first round guys.
You look at what Saquon's doing. He's doing this behind not the best offensive line. No quarterbacks. I mean, Danny Jones and Tyrod Taylor both went out yesterday. You might be playing wide receiver for the Giants in London next week.
Yeah.
But the Giants are 3-1, and Bill Parcells used to say, "You all what your record says, y'all." But I don't know how the Giants are 3-1. But as long as Saquon Barkley makes it to London next week, the Giants are in play.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley obviously is probably the biggest reason why the Giants are 3-1. But I mean, you got to give credit to Brian Daboll. I mean, with this most recent head coach new hiring cycle, Brian Daboll was the number 1 guy on my list for the Miami Dolphins when that before I knew a whole lot about Mike McDaniel, and the guy is an offensive genius. I mean, he's proven it. He proved it in Alabama. It's the man. Obviously does not have a lot to work with the New York Giants offense. He's very thankful, I'm sure, for Saquon Barkley kind of regaining the form that we know that Saquon Barkley can play at. But I give a lot of credit to Brian Daboll just for putting those Giants in the opportunity, giving them the opportunity, building those game plans, and really setting them up for success. But I want to know, we talked about a team that surprised us for the good this season. I want to hear about a team that, might have had some higher expectations and are definitely falling short of that. Who you got?
Well, Alex, the Indianapolis Colts befuddled me. I mean, Indianapolis has gotten off to poor starts in the past, but this is a big surprise. So 1-2-1 sounds like a Premier League scoreline. 1-2-1, but the Colts are bad. The offensive line is bad. Matt Ryan looks like he's about 75 years old. He can't move. I mean, everybody wants to complain about how Carson Wentz ended the season, but at least Carson Wentz was somewhat mobile and could throw the ball. Matt Ryan looks like he's 75 years old. Every time the defense gets anywhere near him, he fumbles the ball.
Yeah.
Like, he can't move. John Taylor was probably the 101 in a ton of drafts. And let me tell you his stat line the last 2 weeks. 21 carries, 71 yards. And yesterday, 20 carries, 42 yards. Oh, and just to make things worse for fantasy owners, he also did something we don't like with running backs. He fumbled.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and he's got a high ankle sprain and may not play Thursday night.
Yeah.
So there's your 101.
Yeah. Plus, Shaquille Leonard formerly Darius Leonard on the defensive side of the ball has been banged up too. I completely agree with you. The Indianapolis Colts were going to be my pick for this segment too, but I don't blame you for jumping on them for that. It's just, I mean, I've always been a big Matt Ryan fan. He's always been a player who I've been watching and been always just kind of had some sort of admiration to. And it's bad. It's bad on all counts. Jonathan Taylor is got to be the biggest fantasy football disappointment this season. There's been a lot of them, but I know he's got to be at the top of the list because, like you said, I mean, he's the one on 101 in pretty much every single fantasy football draft. Another, as far as disappointing, I'm going to kind of pull something up on the fly here because I did prep for the Colts there. But how about other than the Kansas City Chiefs, the rest of the AFC West? Because you're
going to talk about the Broncos in general because what has happened in Denver?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking. I mean, when we were going through our division recaps before the season started, we spent so much time talking about how the AFC West and now the AFC best. I mean, it's the best quarterback division we've ever seen. And look at where we are now. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are 3-1. They're looking great, but the Vegas Raiders. I mean, we had such high expectations for the Raiders. Josh Jacobs blew up yesterday, finally got the Raiders a win. But it's just the chemistry between David Carr and Devontae Adams just doesn't seem to be there yet. Darren Waller can't get going. The Raiders are not who we expected them to be. The Denver Broncos have been a shell of who we expected them to be. Russell Wilson in blue and orange, it's not looking very good for them right now. Obviously, the Javonte Williams news is massively detrimental to their hope for the rest of the season. Fortunately, they have a nice veteran running back in Melvin Gordon who could hopefully carry some of that load, but it's not looking.
If he doesn't fumble for the 15th straight week.
I know it's just. I mean, Vegas is looking poor. Denver's looking poor. Even the Chargers. I mean, they got the win this week. We know they've been banged up, but the Chargers are banged up every season. We've talked about it time and time again. And they beat the Houston Texans this week. I'm not going to give them massive amounts of credit for beating the Houston Texans, an 0-3-1 football team, probably one of the worst teams in the league. They lost to, not even lost, got blown out of the water by your Jaguars last week. We know that the Chargers have talent. We know Justin Herbert's a good quarterback, but based on these injuries and just based on just some disappointing football, I'm going to have to put my disappointment, other than the Indianapolis Colts, on 75% of the AFC West division.
All right, so if you know us, we like to rant. I mean, you've heard yours truly go off the last couple of weeks, so I figured I'd let Alex go off because I know he's pissed at what's happened with the Tua situation into what the Tua should have played against the Bills a week and a half ago on Thursday night, but Alex is steaming, and I know he's ready.
Yeah. So you've had a couple rants over the last couple of weeks. I've sitting here and I've given you the floor here, but now it's my turn because I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off at the National Football League as a whole. I'm pissed off at the media, whether it's the analysts you see on Sundays, whether it's the guys you're seeing in the studio on ESPN, NFL Network throughout the week, or I'm pissed off at NFL fan media on Twitter, the keyboard warriors who have so much to say, who have never played a down of football in their life. All of it. It is all accumulated into this rant. I have seen the Miami Dolphins were a team that never got covered by the media, and for good reason. We never, up until Tua Tagovailoa got drafted, there was really no reason for the media to cover the Dolphins. We hadn't done anything since Marino retired. We made other than a Chad Pennington season and Tom Brady getting hurt for the year. I mean, those were our two playoff appearances since I started watching football. I mean, finally, once the Miami Dolphins drafted Tua, the Dolphins started getting in the headlines just because of how electric Tua was as a college football quarterback, and coming off the injury with Alabama, the very bad hip injury. The Miami Dolphins finally started getting a little bit more recognition in the media. They started getting a couple playmakers, and it all started becoming more. You started seeing the Dolphins on ESPN a little bit more frequently. Bring on this most recent offseason. Obviously, the acquisition of Tyreek Hill catapulted the Miami Dolphins into the spotlight. And it was all these people saying, Tyreek Hill is just chasing the bag. He doesn't care about the Kansas City Chiefs. All he cares about is money. Tua can't throw the ball deep. What is Tyreek Hill thinking? He gave up a Super Bowl just to go get a payday. Tua's not going to be able to hit him. And then what happened the first 3 weeks of the season? The Miami Dolphins go off to a 3-0 record, become the top team in the NFL. As of now, they're still the top ranked team in the AFC. And then the Buffalo Bills game happened. Everyone's seen it. Tua Tagovailoa gets hit, I would say late, from Buffalo Bills defensive player Matt Milano. Tua's head hits the dirt, stands up, buckles, stumbles. And after that moment, everything has flipped on their heads. Since that play and since Tua coming back into that game, all of the heat has been on the Miami Dolphins organization, Mike McDaniel, and really just the Dolphins as a whole, why they would put Tua back in that game. Fast forward to Thursday, why Tua is starting on Thursday Night Football against the Kansas City Bengals. But this is where the rant comes in. The NFL and their employee, the independent neurological doctor that tested Tua Tagovailoa during that Buffalo Bills game, has screwed the Miami Dolphins. It is the NFL's fault. This is an NFL problem. This has nothing to do with the Miami Dolphins. Tua goes out late in the first half, misses the very next drive. Teddy Bridgewater throws 2 batting completions, takes a sack, and then it's halftime. The Miami Dolphins had that defensive drive when Tua's in the locker room, plus all of halftime for Tua to be tested for a concussion, for Tua to go through concussion protocol, and Tua was cleared. After the game, Mike McDaniel's comments are that Tua hurt his back on a quarterback sneak. After the hit from Matt Milano, his back locked up, he lost his balance, he stumbled. People didn't believe it. I understand. I immediately, when I saw the play, I said, Tua has a concussion, he's out for the game. Well, after seeing the reports from Mike McDaniel and after hearing that he clears concussion protocol at halftime, what is Mike McDaniel supposed to do? If a independent neurological doctor tells you that he has cleared concussion protocol, he doesn't have a concussion, and he's good to play, what is Mike McDaniel going to do? It is, at this point, it is listed as a back injury. It's a pain tolerance issue. The fact that keyboard warriors on Twitter and the national news media in general are coming after the Miami Dolphins, saying that the Dolphins need to be stripped of all of their draft picks next season, have to be fined, have to fire Mike McDaniel, have to fire the entire coaching staff, have to fire the entire Dolphins medical team, is ridiculous. The NFL has done this to Tua Tagovailoa. The Miami Dolphins did not do this to Tua Tagovailoa. A first-year rookie head coach is not going to put his face of the franchise quarterback on the field with a concussion. He's not going to make that call. That's a career. That's ruining your head coaching career before it even starts. Mike McDaniel was told by an independent neurologist that Tua was good to go back into that game. He went through concussion protocol every day of that upcoming game until Thursday, passed every single one of those games, and started the game on Thursday. Mike McDaniel had said in an interview, if Tua isn't diagnosed with a concussion, how am I supposed to handle this situation? What is the process? What is the protocol here? If he's not diagnosed with a concussion, I cannot treat this as a concussion. I have to treat this as a back injury. It's a pain tolerance issue. Is he in enough pain to be able to play that game? He was feeling good enough to play that game against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's unfortunate. It sucks what happened. Trust me, as a Miami Dolphins fan, I hate seeing what happened to Tua. I'm still hoping he's okay. You don't know the long-term effects of a concussion. It's a case-by-case basis, and we really don't know what's going to happen with Tua Tagovailoa. But the NFL owes the Miami Dolphins. It's not the other way around. The Dolphins shouldn't be stripped of draft picks. They shouldn't have to fire their head coach. The NFL needs to compensate the Miami Dolphins and compensate Tua Tagovailoa, because they could have, and we still don't know yet, could have ruined his career. Tua Tagovailoa may never play football in the NFL again. He could put a helmet on going back to practice next week, get a migraine, and the next thing you know, he's done. I mean, it's blasphemous that A, the Dolphins are getting the heat for this, and B, that the NFL has already admitted that they made the mistake. They've already fired the independent neurological doctor that made that call in the Bills game. It's shocking to me how the NFL media, the fans, how everyone is making this a Miami Dolphins issue, and this is an NFL issue, and it's one with monstrous what's the word I'm looking for? Repercussions. I mean, we know what CTE can do to NFL players, former NFL players. We've seen it. We've seen the stories. We've seen what happened with Junior Seau. There's been so many situations. The NFL needs to get on top of this. They've already started revising the rules, which is a good step forward, but they're really just covering their butt. But I'm sick of the NFL national media, the keyboard warriors on Twitter, saying that this is a Miami Dolphins issue. The Miami Dolphins love Tua Tagovailoa. That his teammates love Tua, and the Dolphins would not put Tua in this situation if it wasn't for the blatant error made by the independent neurological doctor and the National Football League.
Ooh, you're steaming.
Yeah.
So thanks for hopping on, Alice. We hope Tua gets back soon. I don't believe he'll play week 5 against the Jets, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And we wish your Dolphins well. And stop being me in fantasy, that gummit.
Thanks for having me, Dylan. Fins up, baby.